I've always been contemplative by nature, even as a child, and more decidedly so in the last several decades. So photography helps me in that aspect of contemplating life through the lens. And I'm drawn quite naturally to subjects such as architecture, landscape, seascape, night sky at the time, particularly sunsets, late risers. I don't do too many sunrises, none at all. And of course people. And what happens for me quite often as I'm photographing a particular subject, and it could be quite an abstract, it could be a rusty fence or a half-open gate, that kind of thing. I find that the subject will evoke quite naturally within me various emotions. And I make those emotions, usually later in the day, a matter for prayer. They're incorporated in my prayer. I'll revisit the emotions just privately and ask myself, as a contemplative prayer, I guess, liver, I'll say, why did I feel such and such an emotion when I saw that scene or was drawn to whatever it happened to be, whatever the subject is. So that's the main connection for me in terms of that aspect of my artistic creativity, named as photography. There are other areas as well. As far as this year's theme's concerned, immediately I heard it, I thought of the Christmas carol, Hark the Herald Angels, because there's a great line in there from my perspective, referring to Jesus as the light and life to all he brings. And that to me, quite personally, as well as on a world stage, indicates just an amazing invitation and promise that Jesus could be, and for me indeed is, in a growing way, an ongoing way, light and life. And when I say that, I'm not just meaning that I have to do something other than notice the signs of his light and life in my own life, in the lives of people around me, in the gathered faith communities I'm part of course, in the whole of creation. You know, from my perspective, theologians have long talked about general revelation and specific revelation in Lord Jesus. They've also talked about transcendence and immanence, a sense of God being so vast we can never meet with him, but also people having a sense of his presence in the here and now. So that theme, once again, has evoked a whole lot of thoughts and feelings for me. Primarily the emotion that arises within me when I hear of light and life. I draw a breath, and it's as if I'm drawing or redrawing again the infinite resources of God's love and kindness toward me and toward the world. Glenda and I are truly blessed to have 10 grandchildren. This little fellow is Liam James. He's, at the time I photographed him, he was just under 2. And he actually drew me to what he was looking at. It was a bird, one of many birds he was drawn to outside one of our windows when we were babysitting. And upon reflection, I enlarged this photograph because I was drawn to both the light in his eyes and his pointing finger. And there was a lesson for Grandpa, and it's a continuing important lesson for me of simply noticing the presence of God, in this case in a rather small but beautiful part of his creation, namely a little bird that this little boy could notice and was quite happy about. and so was his grandpa.
So I think for most of the time that I've been creating art, it hasn't really been super interconnected with faith for me. Like my art has generally been more of sort of a separate personal interest thing for me. But I think one of the things that I really like about the SALA exhibition is that creating artworks for that does kind of get me thinking more about bringing those two things together and focusing more on expressing my faith through artwork. So yeah, I think it's been very helpful for me doing SALA, because I think that is actually bringing together some of the faith and the art that for me is generally fairly separate. The first thing that comes to mind, which is not especially connected to the scripture of it, but the first thing that light and life makes me think of is the natural world and the beauty of nature. And just the thing that really amazes me about our world and our universe is how much simultaneously broader and also much, much smaller it is than we can perceive on our own. And to me, I think that speaks to a God who is involved on every level with this universe that we live in, and every part of it is beautiful to God, even the parts that we don't know about yet, or that we don't even know how to look for yet. There's things working under the surface, or there's processes operating on a scale that we can't even really understand. But God sees all of it and has created all of it and has put beauty into all of it as a creator. This artwork started out as actually the last SALA exhibition. We had a workshop on doing lino printing, and this one here, the black dragonfish, was what I made during that workshop, and that kind of kicked off a simultaneous sort of exploration and fascination with lino printing and also the deep ocean. I mean, I love the ocean and sort of marine biology, and particularly the things that live down so deep in the ocean that we almost never have any contact with them. And so this is started out as a series of lino prints depicting a whole bunch of deep ocean creatures, and it's sort of Mum and I have worked together arranging this. It's roughly arranged in the order of depth at which they live, with this sort of watercolor background. And I think my thinking with the connection to the theme is that it kind of links into that idea of these corners of our natural world that we are almost never exposed to, that are so far out of our reach, but there is still life, and there is life that produces light down there. And that to me speaks to, God sees all of these creatures and loves them and is intensely passionate about every single one of them. And so these things in this world don't exist only for us to look at and enjoy. They exist for God and the joy that He takes in them. And they exist to do their own thing down there, whether or not it's something that we can be an active part of or not.
When I think about how art and faith interrelate in my own life, I realised that for much of my life I was less aware of this. I used to be quite a cognitive person, probably still am, but as I've grown older I've understood more of how art can express without words, more things than words can express themselves. And whilst for me as a younger person truth was the thing that I held on to, I've now come to understand some of the ways in which truth also manifests as beauty or as goodness, and that these things are a lot harder to pin down in words and sometimes need other forms of creativity to capture them. I've heard it said that the artist's job is to make the invisible God visible to other people. And so if that's our goal, then every time we create something, we're wanting to try and reveal something of who God is, that we have come to know or understand, so that other people might see that more clearly. I also love to think about how God is creator, and when I'm creating, I do get the sense that God is with me and that I am creating like him at a very different level, but that is something that connects him and connects me. The theme that we've chosen this year for Light and Life is an interesting one. At one level it seems pretty simple, but at other levels it's really very deep. And we have a God who describes himself as the light of the world. And the thing about light, I find, is that it only takes the tiniest bit to completely break through darkness, to send darkness scattering. And so this idea of light in the Bible kind of has two sides to it. One of them is that we have light which helps us to see the truth, but it also helps us to see ourselves, and sometimes we're not comfortable with that. So there's kind of this two-edged relationship with light. But God is light and there is no darkness in him at all. And the light that is in God is the light that brings life to all of humankind. This is my picture here. I'm going to call something like the true light that brings life to all. I was wanting to in some way depict God as light, but I didn't want to use the usual approach of long beams. I wanted to think of another way of depicting light, and so I've chosen what's called the bokeh effect that you get when a photograph is just a little out of focus, and you get these circles of light. And so that's what I've tried to depict here, to represent God as a multifaceted light with many colours, many shades, many qualities, in a setting that is kind of dark and needs light. I hope that it helps people to understand something of the quality of light that God brings.
My art I just see as an extension of my creative interests. I used to do photography, I did hand needle stuff. So my painting came later in life, and I guess I've always wanted to do painting, and I did it through school, but never have done it since. And so for me, it's an extension of being creative, and I know when I'm being creative is normally when I'm really in tune with God, and when I'm just feeling like everything is beautiful in the sense of, like even just leaving home today and looking at the clouds and seeing beauty in that. So for me, my art, I don't do it to get better at art, and I don't do it to paint a picture that is going to hang in some gallery or anything. I paint because of what comes out of who I am at the time and what I feel God is prompting me to paint. And that's probably why I don't paint all the time, but I do enjoy when I do paint, and that's why it's just part of my whole being, because my whole being is as a Christian, so follower of Christ, so therefore it's part of my whole being and I can't separate it. Yeah. When we do art, I would like to think that my art is some way going to talk to people and leave a question in their mind, challenge them, or maybe give them an insight into where I'm at, something like that. When we came up with the theme for this year was Light and Life, I instantly thought of a kaleidoscope, and when you look in the kaleidoscope and the colours, and it just brings a smile to my face. And I remember as a kid always playing with them and just being fascinated by how if you just turn it changed. But if I look through the other end, there's nothing. It's just a few beads. And it made me just think very much that if this is us, without the light, we're not that much in the sense of showing God, but if we've got the light, we really come alive. And so for me, that was just absolutely, I think I took this kaleidoscope to our first committee meeting that we had after we decided. And so I was like, how do I paint this? I can't paint someone looking into it. I really struggled for a bit, but I really wanted to paint it. And I thought, well, we're going to tell the story beside the painting. So for me, that will be where this connects with the kaleidoscope. And I've got 3 kaleidoscopes to go hang down so people can have a play. So for me, I designed this. I did one other design before this one. And I just kind of layered it with colours, watercolour, that for me said brightness. It doesn't have all the little 10 different patterns. It just has one big, and a black representing when you look in it. And for me, I would hope that this has enough light and colour that it shows through their connection with these that God is there. And I always look at the stained glass in our church and I think of them as well. With the light coming through, they're even better. For me, when I finished this particular one, I was, being a mathematical person and symmetrical kind of person, was a bit frustrated because the centre wasn't quite centre, and it was, do I start again? And I thought afterwards, I'm actually happy it's not in the centre, because I'm not always centred perfectly with God, but I can still show His light through me. And I really did think that. I just sat down and I thought, no, I'm glad it's not perfect, because I'm not perfect and neither is anyone else. And if you look closely, there's a few little mistakes, and I'm quite happy about that. And so that's how this painting came around. Never done anything like that before. It was my own design, but I haven't copied it or whatever. Haven't done anything like that. It's not my normal art. And when you get to SALA and the exhibition, you'll see none of them are my normal art. But that's how my connection with light and life is, that hopefully it brings a smile to people as they look through the kaleidoscopes I provide, see some sort of patterns and go, I remember when I used to do that. And I also remember that as I look through it, it only comes alive when the light's going through it. So that's how my connection is with this painting and with the theme.
Cool. So art and faith interact in my life in a very big way, unsurprisingly. As a practicing visual artist, I think having an arts practice is a really beautiful way of reflecting nature and what I see that is inspiring in creation. So I do a lot of observational stuff of animals and people, and I find that is a really great way to connect even deeper to the world around me and to kind of the things that I find beauty in, and sometimes not beauty in life. And that's a really good way of exploring my faith and my belief in God. Light and life is a really interesting theme for me, because often I have been exploring things that have a little bit more of a somber tone in my work until this year, which has been definitely a little bit more colourful. So using neon colours, things that are very bright, very lifelike, looking at things that are around in the native Australian environment especially, And luckily that shift in practice came just before the new theme of our SALA show came out. So that was a really good way of kind of digging a little deeper into that particular area and going full crazy into colour and just really amping things up to that next level, making things feel very bright, very effervescent in their kind of, colour palette to reflect that lifey? Yeah, good English words. To reflect the really quirky and fun elements of life, I think, that we can find all around us in South Australia. Okay, so this is a pastel painting or a pastel drawing. It's a portrait of an ibis. My husband took the photograph and then I did a drawing from that photograph from the Botanic Gardens. And I really love ibis, or ibi. I think that they're really cool and they're really adaptable and that they're a really fun and goofy kind of addition to our urban environments and have done a really good job of adapting to a loss of natural habitat. So I wanted to do something that reflected their kind of new iconic status as an Australian native bird, but also to kind of, reflect again a little bit deeper on the loss of natural habitat for these birds because of human development and human impact into those kind of native areas. So yeah, it's just really fun getting to spend time with a quirky bird.
So I think, the beauty of this world is a real inspiration for what I do in my art. It's God's created world, and so I love to see the beauty in nature and small things, big things. I'm a scientist, so I look down microscopes, so I see beauty down microscopes, so I see beauty in scenes, when I'm out in the real world. So in all of that, I see God, and that, I guess, I tend to paint from life rather than just making things up. So that's, I guess, really the inspiration I've got for my art. Yeah, so I thought this theme is so intertwined with everything to do with how God talks about himself in the Bible and how Jesus reflects himself also in the Word and also how we're supposed to be. So there are so many passages in the Bible, I think there's over 200 that talk about light. And it's, I guess, a metaphor for lots of things. Being, I guess, purity and God's glory is all reflected in the concept of light. Evil is reflected in darkness and things like that. Light overcomes the darkness, but there's many passages in the scriptures that just talk about the light, God and Christ being the light of the world. I've come, I've brought light and life to the world. Christ said, I came to give you life and to give it to you in full. So the concept of both light and life, I think, just throughout the Bible in so many different ways. And then I guess we're called also to be light in the world. So I think, just all of these themes really, they're just so intertwined with faith. I think that's been a really easy theme to tie in to my own beliefs. So I found that pretty easy. And I think, life, obviously Christ has come that, we have eternal life, that we have full life while we're on this earth. So, I haven't found it difficult at all to tie that in with my faith. And probably of all the years, I think it's one that's really easy to work into my beliefs as well. So this is a scene that I've painted, or tried to paint from a photograph. I always feel like I can never actually do photographs justice, which is my, understanding of trying to reflect God's actual beauty that He's surrounded us in. It's really hard to actually get it looking as beautiful as the real world is, but this is just a scene, I guess, that probably lots of people find quite inspiring and makes them think of God's creative power when they see a beautiful sunset. So this is just something I took a photo of. There was birds swirling throughout the sky, and the classic seagulls. I think we'd just had some fish and chips at the beach, so the birds were there. So I took some photos. It was a bit of a sort of stormy day, and so I just thought this is a good reflection of both the light, with the sun being the real focus of the painting. Obviously Christ is God's Son, and those terms are also sort of used interchangeably, with Son being the Son of God and also sun being the main light we experience. Sun, obviously, it's important, imperative for the life on this earth. So again, just having birds in the sky, the ocean's filled with life as well, teeming with different versions of life. So I thought, a sunset was a good way to bring the theme together of light and life. And I think, sunsets are just awe-inspiring.
Well, since getting into art, I look at creation and the world around me a little bit differently. I think I'll look to see things as a picture now, and whereas I look at the sky and say that's nice, I'll look at say, that might make a great picture, or how the cloud formations are forming, or how the light reflects off the water. So I guess I have more appreciation of the world around me now, nature, and looking at it from a different perspective than I used to. I actually reflect back on a painting I did last year for SALA, which was of light in the centre and coming to that light from an area of shadows and darkness. And I think that reflects how I see the theme this year, because for me, light is the light of Jesus, and I think we're constantly heading towards that from areas of darkness and shadows, and I guess that journey reflects how I see the theme. As a Christian, I'm always heading towards the light and looking to become close to God and close to the light. The two paintings I've done here, this one uses pointillism, which I, not doing much history of art, didn't know much about it, but I was doing a bit of research and thought this would be a good theme to do, playing around with how essentially it's pointillism is lots of different colours put together, and when you sort of squint, those colours form an illusion of a different colour. And some of the great, I guess, Impressionist painters did this, George Seurat and then Vincent van Gogh. So I thought I'd give it a go. So this one's an Italian castle using a whole lot of dot paints, different colours to form obviously the sky and the reflection off the water. And so I thought it was a good use of light and life, and how, I guess, a different perspective where it's really an illusion of the different colours. This second painting, probably in the same theme of pointillism, so this one using more dashes rather than dots. And it was inspired by Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night, for anyone who knows that, which was painted from his asylum window, but he used some pointillism in his paintings, and also magnified the light sources, in this case the stars in the sky and the moon, which were over exaggerated. So I tried to do that to create a painting, and then used a single tree on an island there and the reflection. So again, having some fun playing around with light and pointillism, and yeah, so hopefully it came out all right.